If anyone in that court system believes justice was served, then they're absolutely idiotic. What's up, everybody? What's on the menu? Back again with another video, and this time we're here to talk about the verdicts of the Cyrus Carmack Belton trial as well as the Carmelo Anthony murder trial. As always, before we get into the meat and potatoes of this video, don't forget to like the video if you like it, don't if you don't. If you like more social media and pop culture related topics like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And without further ado, let's get started. On June 1st, 2026, 61-year-old Rick Chow was found not guilty for the murder of 14-year-old Cyrus Carmack Belton. In May of 2023, Rick Chow and his son chased Cyrus Belton out of their family-owned convenience store after accusing him of stealing water bottles. Both men pursued Cyrus about the length of a football field before it ended fatally. Rick Chow's defense for the murder was the fact that Cyrus had stolen water bottles from his store and he feared for his son's life. Though Cyrus did have a firearm on his person during the pursuit, he did not wield or brandish the weapon towards Rick Chow and his son. Though claims were made by Rick Chow that Cyrus pointed the gun at him during their pursuit, it was later clarified by witness testimony that nothing of the sort was done. Also, based off of autopsy reports, the angle at which the bullet had entered Cyrus's body shows that he could not have been aiming anything at Rick Chow during their pursuit. Before we go any further, I just want to make this abundantly clear. The facts of the case all point to the fact that Rick Chow had no justifiable reason to pursue this child outside of his store, as well as gun him down for the sake of stealing a water bottle. From the time Cyrus had entered the convenience store, from the time that he left, he was compliant with all the demands of the store and did not harass, threaten, or do anything disturbing of the sort. He searched around the store, found some waters, put them back, but then when he was asked if he was stealing anything, he told him he was not, showed him his clothes as he wasn't harboring any water in them, and he was telling them the truth. Even though he had no water on him, and he was telling them that he had no water on him, even though this has been proven, especially by the investigators of the case, they still chose to pursue him. Why two grown men would chase down a kid for the fact that he stole water is absolutely absurd. The water that the kid didn't steal at most would cost $2, maybe even $3, and they thought it was justifiable to kill some kid over that. In any sane world, that's absolutely ludicrous. Think about that for a second. You go into a convenience store, and whether you did take something or not, let's say it was a bottle of water, just for the sake of the argument. Do you think that a convenience store owner is justified in running you down and taking your life for the fact that you stole a $2 beverage? Really? Keep in mind, in the convenience store, this kid did not threaten. He did not show the weapon he had in his possession. He put the backpack at the door at the convenience store owner's request. He did everything they asked of him, and he was still taken from this earth because of what he looks like. Let's just keep it a buck, because of what he looks like. And even after all this evidence was compiled and witness testimony and video surveillance footage of the incident or things leading up to the incident, Rick Chow, the store owner, was found not guilty of murder. Absolutely wild. I'll wrap this all up in my 2 cents section, but let's also talk about the Carmelo Anthony murder trial. I spoke about the details of this trial briefly in this Asmon Gold video that I made not too long ago. If you want to check out that video and the bulk of the details, you can click that video if you want to watch it, but I'll do a brief summary of the events that led up to the trial, the details surrounding the trial, and the verdict. Carmelo Anthony was a high school track athlete who was attending a track meet at one of the fellow schools that he was competing against, and he went under a tent due to the fact that it was raining and they were taking cover to let time for the rain to pass. Inside of the tent of a competing school, Austin Metcalf, who was a teenager for the competing school whose tent he was under, told him to leave the tent as he did not want him to be there. A physical altercation that was started by Austin Metcalf ensued. Carmelo Anthony gave him a warning. He then retaliated after being physically assaulted again by Austin Metcalf. He was stabbed by Carmelo Anthony, and unfortunately, he lost his life. Carmelo Anthony was then arrested and was tried as an adult in the state of Texas because he was 17 and facing murder charges. Carmelo Anthony was pleading self-defense in this instance, as Austin Metcalf was the one who initiated the altercation. Coincidentally, the jury selection for Carmelo Anthony's trial began on June 1st, 2026, the same day Rick Chow received his not guilty verdict for the murder of Cyrus Carmack Belton. The jury screening included nearly 600 people. During the selection of jurors, the defense raised the Babson challenge after the prosecution struck 3 black female jurors from the pool, of whom the defense considered to be similarly situated to a white female juror that was not struck. And for those of you who don't know, the Babson challenge is an objection to an opposing counsel's use of a peremptory challenge to exclude a juror from the jury pool based on a criteria in the courts that have found disqualifying, as race was the sole rationale for exclusion in Batson. Long story short, the defense was basically claiming that the courts were being racist for disqualifying 3 black women from the jury pool, though the prosecution made the claim that they were disqualified for race-neutral reasons in the fact that they were educators of school-age children. The jury for the case contained no black individuals at all, even though there were people of color present. The trial was relatively swift, taking place on June 4th, 2026 and ending on June 9th, 2026. Carmel Anthony was found guilty of murder on June 9th, 2026 and received 35 years in prison. After seeing 2 different cases involving murder and 2 young black kids, I gotta give my 2 cents on the situations. Starting with the Cyrus Carmack Belton case and the Rick Chow case that took place in South Carolina, this one seemed like a no-brainer from the start. A kid who didn't steal anything from a convenience store, didn't threaten anybody, and had his life taken from him due to the fact that he was allegedly stealing a water bottle, which was proven to not be the case, didn't get justice served on his behalf for the reasons that are clear that America's court systems are racist. You're telling me that after this kid went into your store, followed your rules, didn't threaten you, didn't act aggressively, and was telling the truth, still lost his life, and then on top of that, the person who ended up taking his life was found not guilty? Like, what sane world are we living in where that's the case? This kid did everything right, and because he was the wrong skin pigmentation, he lost his life. That's just what it comes down to. He was accused of stealing. He didn't steal. He was asked to put his backpack at the door. He did that when he was asked. When they accused him of stealing, he showed them that he wasn't stealing. And just because they didn't believe him, he got ran down and gunned down. That doesn't make any sense. What that just tells me is that the South Carolina legal system literally values a bottle of water, a non-existent bottle of water, mind you, over the life of a young black child. Because it was proven that he didn't steal anything and he didn't brandish a weapon at either of the Chows during the pursuit, and he still lost his life. Like, that doesn't make any sense. The way in which I can put this way everyone can understand is like being a loyal partner, having your partner have requests of you, don't go out late, you can't have girlfriends, you gotta be home at this time so I know that you're safe, you gotta call me and text me at this time every day, and I gotta be able to look through your phone. You do all the correct steps that your partner asks of you. They accuse you of cheating. You prove to them that you never cheated, you don't cheat, and you never will cheat. And they still break up with you because they said that you're cheating, even though all the evidence points to the contrary. That's the best way I can put this analogy. You're at the mercy of another individual asking you to do right by them, and because you do all that stuff and you still get punished for it, you still receive the short end of the stick for whatever reason. It makes absolutely no sense. The South Carolina justice system should be ashamed of themselves for even giving Rick Chow a non-guilty verdict. If anyone in that court system believes justice was served, then they're absolutely idiotic. I know I'm not a lawyer, prosecutor, district attorney, any of those things in the legal system, but I just know looking at the facts, from the outside looking in, it's just kind of clear that this kid did nothing wrong and he lost his life. And on top of that, the person who ended up taking his life isn't even facing any repercussions for that by the legal system. Now for the Carmelo Anthony case. This one was a little different as there was an altercation that ensued prior to the murder. Due to the fact that Carmelo Anthony did confess to the crime, he wanted to plead self-defense over the fact that it was manslaughter. In doing so, he would get complete exoneration from the crime if found not guilty, instead of a lesser charge for it being manslaughter if he was found guilty. More of an all or nothing type of deal. Regardless, based on the facts gathered about the case, it was clear that there were a lot of biases going into it. For starters, the fact that the jury had no black individuals on it whatsoever kind of skewed the jury in favor of Austin Metcalf's family. Not calling any of the jurors racist, but a lot of white people and lighter POCs tend to align themselves more with people who have skin complexions similar to theirs, and due to the fact that Carmelo Anthony was clearly a black individual and Austin Metcalf was a white individual, the biases are already showing. On top of that, I'm seeing conflicting evidence as to who the aggressor was in the situation. When I first read about the situation about a month and some change ago, I was seeing that Austin Metcalf and his brother were the initial aggressors of the situation, but now I'm reading some testimonies from the lawyers in the case, and they're saying that Carmelo Anthony was the initial aggressor, which seems to be conflicting evidence from what we initially saw. Prosecutor Bill Werski said, "You don't get to meet a shove with a stab, especially if you provoke the shove," which is an interesting statement to make, because if someone tells you, hey, do X, Y, or Z and see what happens, I don't think that's someone provoking them to do the thing. I think that's them giving a warning to not do the thing. Personally, if I was in a heated scenario with another individual and they told me, do X, Y, or Z and see what happens, I'm not taking that as an invitation to see what happens. I'm taking that as an invitation to stop what I'm doing and move on, because I don't think the jury saw it that way, as it took them less than 3 hours to come to a decision. And when manslaughter was on the table as a potential charge, they denied it. It's also sad because in order for the jury to come to that decision, that means every single one of the jurors had to unanimously agree that Carmel Anthony was guilty of the murder of Austin Metcalf. Even though what happened is messed up, I feel like a lot of people aren't taking into consideration the height and weight differential between the two kids. Also, why is a kid making threats at another kid because he's staying underneath a tent and he wants to stay dry during a track meet? I don't get why the situation had to escalate as much as it did. We could even claim that Austin Metcalf and company were being unnecessarily aggressive at the fact that there was someone who wanted to stay dry from an opposing team in their tent. Just unfortunate that he wasn't given as much grace, and his age wasn't even taken into consideration either, because keep in mind, this is a young boy. He's 17 years old, or at least he was when the incident took place, and he's only 19 now, which means his mind is still developing and he's not a full-grown adult, and he can't make logical decisions as well as a full-grown adult could. Yes, under Texas law, he was tried as an adult because 17-year-olds can be tried as adults in Texas, but I feel like people are still not grasping the fact that this is a kid that made this decision. Another crazy aspect about the case that's not really being mentioned is the fact that Carmel Anthony was only about 5'8" and 130 pounds, while Austin Metcalf was 6'1" and 213 pounds. That means that Austin Metcalf had almost a 100-pound weight difference on Carmel Anthony, and they're the same age. Currently, I'm a 5'11", fully grown man at 30 years old, and I weigh about 200 pounds. That means that Austin Metcalf, as a 17-year-old, is bigger than me as a full-grown man, and he's intimidating another kid his same age, who he's significantly bigger than. Like, that's not being really thought of either in this case. I will admit this though, even though Carmel Anthony was being antagonized by Austin Metcalf and other individuals from an opposing school, and they were being physical towards him, whether justified or not, I think it is kind of an extreme stretch for him to pull out a knife in order to kind of remedy the situation and even use a knife on another individual, especially the fact that these kids were in high school and they were initially there for a track meet. And that's what I have to say is the messed up part about both these cases. They both involved two young black individuals. One was 14 at the time of his incident, while the other was 17. Those are children. Like, Cyrus lost his life because he complied with all the demands of the shop owner whose shop he was attending, and he still lost his life because they thought he was a threat. While Carmel Anthony was defending himself against people who were trying to be antagonistic towards him, and when he gave them warnings as to why they shouldn't continue to be antagonistic, they took it as an opportunity to continue to be antagonistic, and someone lost her life as a result, which was sad. In many parts of the legal system around the world, people like to hold on to the mantra that justice is blind, and they have Judicia as a symbol of their justice system, the lady with the blindfold holding the scale, and that's something that doesn't seem to be true too much in America, because we've seen time and time again in instances where black individuals are put on trial or trying to be defended, but they don't have their rights as well enforced or protected as other individuals may. A lot of similarities have been made between the killing of Cyrus Carmack Belton and the killing of Latasha Harlins, which happened in Los Angeles in 1991 due to a Korean store owner assuming that she was stealing orange juice while she wasn't, but then after brandishing a gun in her face, she tried to walk away but was ultimately shot dead. Though the store owner that shot Latasha ended up getting convicted of voluntary manslaughter and 10 years in state prison, she had her sentence suspended and ultimately ended up serving 5 years of probation with only 400 hours of community service, paying $500 of restitution, and having to pay for Latasha Harlan's funeral, and didn't serve any prison time for the crime. A case that has a lot of similarity to the Austin Metcalf / Carmelo Anthony case is the one between the killing of Jordan Neely by Daniel Penny. This one took place in NYC when a mentally ill man by the name of Jordan Neely, who was frustrated with the way his life was going, was on a subway acting erratic based on the testimony by passengers on the subway station. Due to his behavior, Jordan Penny felt it was appropriate to restrain him by putting him in a chokehold. While Jordan Neely was being put in a chokehold by Daniel Penny, Jordan was also being restrained by 2 other men. Jordan Neely ultimately ended up being killed by the chokehold put on him by Daniel Penny. After being on trial for second-degree manslaughter, Daniel Penny was ultimately found not guilty of the charges. And it's quite an unfortunate case to witness, because someone who had elite military training and was someone who probably could have remedied the situation a lot better ended up using his information and his force in order to subdue an individual who is going through a mental health episode, not receiving the proper care needed for him to survive, and ultimately died because the system in itself failed him, as well as the individuals around him, and the person who killed him didn't receive any consequences for it. After his acquittal, Daniel Penny actually joined U.S. President-elect Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance at the 2024 Army-Navy American football game as a guest of honor shortly after his acquittal. A few months later, Penny was actually hired by a prominent Silicon Valley venture capitalist, Andreessen Horowitz, as a deal partner in the division of the firm specializing in aerospace, defense, public safety, education, housing, supply chain, industrials, and manufacturing. So not only did Daniel Penny get off with killing someone, whether it was accidental or not, he was actually rewarded for it by the to-be president at the time, while also getting his foot in the door with higher ups in Silicon Valley. One black kid, mind you, kills someone in self-defense and gets put away behind bars for 35 years, while another individual kills someone and he not only doesn't face any repercussions for it, but he gets rewarded for it and gets put in higher positions of power. That's kind of wild if you think about it. All in all, I think black people, especially young black boys, are not treated as well as they should be under the eyes of the law. I mean, if we're going to even bring it back further, look at the case of Emmett Till. If you want to look at injustices by the American legal system and black boys specifically, it's just an ongoing cycle that has yet to stop. We're in 2026 now, and this stuff is still happening. So what are your guys' thoughts? Do you think the American legal system is inherently biased and doesn't actually, weight justice equally for all individuals? Or do you think that the American justice system is as good as it has been and it will ever be, and it's doing its best to uphold equality in the eyes of the law? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Deuces.